My name is Max Calloway. I was 20 years old and home alone on a rainy Thursday night when a stranger on Omegle showed me something through his webcam that I still cannot fully process even now. I thought I was just killing time talking to random people on the internet. I had no idea I was about to look at something that would make me pick up the phone and call the police before the chat even disconnected. If you have ever used a random video chat site, keep listening, because this one changed the way I think about what is on the other side of the screen. Anthony from Jacksonville. I want to tell you about the day itself before I get into what happened. Not because the details matter in the way horror story details usually do, but because the whole point of what this guy did was how ordinary the approach felt right up until the moment it did not. It was a Thursday in October. Rain coming down hard all afternoon, the kind of persistent rain that makes staying inside feel like the only reasonable option. My roommate Nash was out for the day. I had the house to myself, a 2-story rental in a quiet neighborhood, nothing special. I had been playing video games since around noon, and by 3 in the afternoon, I was thoroughly bored with it. I opened Omegle. I want to be clear that I had used the site before. Several times. Most of the time it was uneventful, a string of quick connections with people who said a few words and then disconnected, or people who were clearly looking for something specific that I was not interested in providing. Every once in a while you got a genuinely interesting conversation. That was what kept people coming back to it. The occasional good conversation in an ocean of nothing. I clicked into video chat, and while the site was searching for a connection, I went to the kitchen to get something to eat. I came back with a bowl of nachos and a Coke and sat down at my desk. I was sorting through some stuff on the side of the desk, adjusting the position of some controllers and a notebook before I actually looked at the screen. The chat had connected while I was doing all of that. Someone was already there, had been there for some time apparently, and they had been watching me. When I finally looked up at the screen, a face was pressed extremely close to the camera. 2 large, wide-open eyes filling most of the frame, not blinking, just there, aimed directly at me. I jerked backward in my chair and my elbow knocked the Coke. Then the face pulled back. A man, probably in his late 30s. He was sitting in a room that was lit entirely by blue LED lights. The kind of cold, flat blue that makes everything look like it exists inside a freezer. The light was disorienting in a way that is hard to describe. It made the edges of things look slightly wrong, made the man's face look pale and slightly waxy. He smiled at me. He said it was fun to watch you come in and arrange your desk without knowing I was watching you. I said something back. I do not fully remember what. I was still processing the eyes close to the camera thing. We started talking. His name was Anthony, he said. He was from Jacksonville. He was calm and conversational, and the chat settled into something that felt almost normal within the first few minutes. He mentioned a recent breakup. He said the woman had left him to go back to her ex. He said the blue lights in his room calmed him down. He said he had not been feeling like himself lately. I made a passing comment about getting over it. Something offhand and probably a little dismissive, the way you talk about something you do not actually understand. He turned on me immediately. His tone shifted so completely and so fast that the contrast was almost physical. He said you cannot just get over someone you love with everything you have. He said she was his soulmate. His voice was not loud, but it had an edge to it that had not been there 30 seconds before. A rigidity, the voice of someone who had been thinking about this exact topic for a very long time and did not have patience for casual responses to it. I apologized. He accepted the apology and the conversation shifted again. Lighter. He asked about my life, whether I had a girlfriend. I told him about a girl I liked from class. He offered advice. The advice was not right. He told me to follow her wherever she went, not to let other men near her. He described what he had done to a man who had tried to talk to his girlfriend, a physical incident that had sent the man to a hospital, and he said it in the tone of someone describing a reasonable solution to a minor problem. He caught my expression and said he was joking. Then he said, or maybe not. I started making noises about logging off. The conversation had gone somewhere I did not want to be in. The blue room and the unblinking eyes and the not joking thing were all sitting in my chest in a way I was trying not to show. He told me not to disconnect. I said I needed to go, it was getting late. He said, do not you dare walk out on me. Do you know what I do to people who walk out on me? He stood up from his chair. He crossed to the far corner of the room, which the camera could partially see, and turned on an overhead light. The blue was replaced by regular white light, and the room became visible in a way it had not been before. There was a bed in the corner. Someone was lying on it. I could see that a person was there, that their hands and feet were bound, that a gag was in their mouth. I could see that they were conscious and aware of the camera. I could see their eyes finding the screen. Anthony stood beside the bed. He said, this is Lucy. She left me for her ex, so now she gets to stay with her ex. I do not want to describe in detail what else was on that bed. I will tell you that it was something that should not have been there. Something that told me without any ambiguity that the woman named Lucy had been in that room for a very long time. Something that told me Anthony intended for her to stay there. I said, you are a psycho. I am calling the police right now. He said, you can try. Good luck finding me. Goodbye, Max. He reached forward and disconnected the chat. I sat at my desk for probably 10 seconds. Then I picked up my phone and called 911. Then I called Nash and told him to come home. The next morning, Nash and I went to the police station and filed a formal report. We gave them the timestamp of the connection, the username, everything we could remember. The officers contacted authorities in Jacksonville to follow up on the name Anthony. The name was almost certainly fake. The location may or may not have been real. I do not know what happened to the woman on that bed. I have thought about it many times, and I have made peace with the fact that I will probably never know. The police told me that without account data from Omegle, which the platform did not readily provide, tracing a specific connection was extremely difficult. I stopped using Omegle after that night. Not out of fear exactly. More out of a recognition that the architecture of that platform, the randomness, the anonymity, the inability to filter or verify anything about who you are connecting to, creates a specific kind of darkness. Most of the people on it are harmless, but some are not. And there is no way to know which one is on the other side of the screen until they decide to show you. Anthony decided to show me. I wish he had not. The hacker on the notebook. The second story belongs to a woman I will call Jean. She is 32 years old now. She was 17 when this happened. She shared this account with me because she wants people to understand a specific thing about how some threats work. They do not require you to make a mistake to find you. Sometimes they find you through the people around you who have no idea they are being watched. John was home one evening with her mother and her 9-year-old cousin. Her mother had been using Omegle on the family laptop, just browsing conversations the way some people do when they are bored. John came over and saw her mother chatting with a young man, maybe late 20s, blonde, pleasant looking. She ended the chat and tried to close the application. The application would not close. She tried again. Task manager, force quit. The window stayed open. The man was still there. He told her not to worry about it. He said he liked older women, but that did not mean he had nothing to say to her. He said she should wait until she was 18. She told him the show was over and reached for the laptop to take out the battery. He stopped her with a sentence. He asked if her mother would like anchovies on her pizza. Jean froze. They had been ordering pizza. Her cousin had been insisting on a specific order for the last 20 minutes. Nobody on that call had mentioned pizza or anchovies or anything related to what they were doing in the other room. The man said, "There is no way your mother told me your name. or your age, or what pizza you ordered. I know all of this, and I know a lot of other things about your mother, about your cousin, about you. Your address, for example. He told her not to turn off the laptop. She checked the battery indicator, 17%. He told her exactly what percentage it was before she looked. She plugged in the charger. He had already been in the system long enough to know the battery level, to have accessed the camera and microphone in ways that went beyond the Omegle connection, to have been watching their household before that evening began. He had not discovered them through the chat. The chat was just the moment he chose to reveal himself. He sent an attachment. She opened it. It was a video file. Security footage taken from outside their building showing her mother entering the apartment that afternoon with groceries. Her mother looking completely normal, completely unaware. Filmed from somewhere close enough to capture her face clearly. Jean understood in that moment that this was not about the chat. This had been happening before the chat. He had found them before that evening and had been watching and had chosen tonight to make contact. He told Jean what he wanted. He wanted her mother to go to a specific location in their apartment, a hiding spot for savings, and retrieve the money there. He wanted her to take it downstairs and give it to the pizza delivery person when he arrived. Jean relayed the instruction to her mother. Her mother understood immediately from the expression on Jean's face that something was wrong. She went to retrieve the money. She came back with it. She told Jean she loved her. She went downstairs. A second camera feed appeared on the screen. The building entrance. Jean could see her mother at the door. She watched as men approached her mother on the street. She watched her mother resist and call out. She watched the van. She watched her mother taken. Jean and her cousin were locked in the apartment. Her phone had no signal. She screamed from the window. No one came. The man on the screen watched all of this. He said this was never about the money. Then he said it was a good show, one of the best of the week. Then the connection closed. Jean called the police when the signal returned. She has been working in computer security since she was old enough to choose a career. She told me she went into that field for one reason. She said someday, somewhere, I will find the people responsible. I have been looking since I was 17. I have not stopped. I believe her. The particular quality in her voice when she said it was not dramatic. It was the voice of someone who has converted grief into patience and purpose and has been caring both for 15 years. The boy who wore his face. The third story is mine. This is the one I find hardest to tell. Not because of what I personally experienced, but because I was sitting in the room when it happened to someone else, and there was nothing I could do except watch and then run. This was about a year after the Anthony incident. I was 21. A few of us had gotten together at my place on a Saturday night with no particular plan. My friend Steve had been talking for weeks about a girl he had met on Omegle, a connection that had turned into something real, or at least real enough that they had a date planned for Sunday. He could not stop talking about her. My friend Marco sat quietly next to Steve and raised an eyebrow at the appropriate moments. Marco was the opposite of Steve in almost every way. Where Steve was loud and forward and willing to broadcast every feeling he had, Marco was careful and observant. He was the president of the chess club at our high school. He thought before he spoke. He kept his room exactly the way he liked it. The same chessboards on the shelves, the checkered curtains on the window, the poster from the Queen's Gambit he had put up the previous year. Steve suggested we try Omegle together. We cycled through a few connections. Most were nothing. Then a connection came in and stayed. The skip button was grayed out. Neither clicking nor refreshing cleared it. We had not encountered that before. The person on the other side introduced himself. He gave his name as Marco. He said he went to Riverside High School and that he was the president of the chess club. Riverside was our school. Marco was the president of the chess club. I looked to my right. Marco was sitting very still with his eyes fixed on the screen. The man on the screen looked like Marco. Not approximately, not with superficial similarity. He looked like Marco in the way that a mirror looks like you. The same face, the same build, the same hair. He was wearing the same shirt Marco was wearing that evening. Steve started demanding answers, saying someone was pranking us, saying this was Marco, saying the guy on screen was not the real one. The man on screen responded calmly. He said he was the real Marco. He said the person sitting next to us was not. Then he pulled back from the camera to show more of the room. Behind him were chessboards on shelves, checkered curtains on the window, the Queen's Gambit poster. That was Marco's room. That was Marco's specific arrangement of specific things in a room that was 7 blocks from where we were sitting. Marco stood up. He was trembling. He got his phone out and called his parents on speaker. His mother answered. Her voice was warm and familiar. Marco asked when she had last seen him. She said 2 minutes ago when you went up to your room, silly. Marco said, Mom, that is not me. I am not home. Someone is in our house. Please call the police. Please do not go upstairs. She had already hung up. We watched the screen. The man sitting in Marco's room turned toward the door behind him. We could hear footsteps in the hallway, the particular creak of the second step from the top that I had heard 100 times when I visited that house. Marco's mother opened the bedroom door. She looked at the man in the chair. She stepped back. He stood up. Steve crossed to the back of my computer and pulled the power cord from the wall. He said, let's go. Now. We ran out of my house and down the street toward Marco's. Steve told my parents on the way out to call 911 and send them to Marco's address immediately. He said something bad was happening there. My father had the phone out before we reached the front door. It took us 4 minutes to cover the 7 blocks. I have never run that fast before or since. The front door of Marco's house was open when we arrived. The lights inside were off. I want to be careful here about how I describe what we found inside, because Marco is still alive and he reads things about that night sometimes, and I do not want to put more weight on it than he already carries. What I will say is that we found what we found, and that the police arrived about 90 seconds after we did, and that Marco was on the floor in the hallway when they came in, and that they took him away from the house before he could fully understand the extent of what had happened. We gave statements to 2 different sets of officers that night and again the following morning. We told them everything we had seen on the screen. We described the man who had looked like Marco in every physical detail we could manage. We described the room and what was in it and what had been happening in real time on that camera, while we sat 7 blocks away, unable to do anything. The officer who took our statement looked at us when we described the doppelganger. He wrote it down. He did not comment. The man was never caught. The investigation turned up no useful physical evidence that could not be explained by someone who had studied Marco's appearance, his home, his routine, his clothing, his social media, and his daily patterns with enough patience and attention to detail to replicate them for a single evening. That is the rational explanation. Someone who looked enough like Marco and had done enough research to pass for him in a dim room for a few minutes. Someone who had accessed the Omegle connection in a way that prevented us from ending it. Someone who had been planning this specific night for a specific purpose for a long time. Marco moved in with me about 3 weeks after that night. He needed to be somewhere other than a hotel or a relative's house, and I had the room. He stayed for almost 2 years. We became close in the way that people become close when they have been through something together that they cannot fully explain to anyone who was not there. He moved out when he was ready. He is doing okay now. He has a good job in a small apartment, and he calls me once a week on Sunday evenings. But I know what he is doing with his spare time. He has told me. He is looking. He has been looking since that night, and he will not stop until he finds a name that matches the face we saw on that screen. He keeps a photo of his family on his desk at work. His mother, his father, his sisters, all 4 of them together at a beach somewhere. 2 summers before that night. He looks at it every morning when he sits down. The thing these three have in common: 3 different platforms, 3 different people, 3 different situations that could not be more unlike each other on the surface. Anthony used Omegle's anonymity to create a situation where he could reveal himself to a stranger, knowing there was essentially nothing that stranger could do in real time. He had calculated the helplessness into the encounter, the distance, the platform's poor traceability, the fact that by the time anyone responded to a report, the connection would be long gone. The hacker who contacted Jean's family used a laptop with a compromised camera to watch a household for an extended period before making contact. He already knew everything he needed to know before the conversation on Omegle began. The chat was not the access point. It was just the reveal. The man who entered Marco's home and wore his face used research. Deep, thorough, patient research. He knew which shirt Marco was wearing that evening. He had been inside that room. He had planned the timing down to the minute. All 3 of these people were operating with information they should not have had. And all 3 of them got that information through some combination of digital access and sustained observation. There are things you can do. Keep your camera covered when you are not actively using it, a piece of tape or a physical slider if your laptop has one. Keep your microphone muted at the system level when not in use. Be aware that any device with an internet connection and a camera is theoretically a window that can be opened from the outside. Update your operating system and your security software, because the exploits that enable unauthorized camera access are regularly patched and regularly replaced. But I want to be honest about something. Jeanne did nothing wrong. She did not leave her camera uncovered or her system unpatched. She was a 17-year-old girl in her living room, and someone had decided to make her a target and had done the work to get access to her household before she even knew she was being watched. There was no decision she made that caused what happened to her mother. Marco was careful and private and thoughtful and kept his social media locked down and lived a normal life in a quiet neighborhood, and someone studied him anyway with enough thoroughness to walk into his home and take his face. The preventive measures I described matter. They genuinely reduce your exposure. But I do not want to suggest that the absence of those measures is what caused these things to happen. Sometimes people with bad intentions and sufficient patience find what they are looking for regardless. I still use video chat. I am still online every day. I did not become someone who unplugs from the world after that Thursday night in October. But I always look at the screen before I sit down now. Every time. Before I do anything else, I look at the screen and I confirm that nothing is there that should not be. Because the thing about Anthony that I think about most is not what he showed me at the end of the conversation. It is the opening, the 2 big eyes filling the frame. The moment I finally looked at the screen and found something already looking back. He had been watching me arrange my desk. He had been watching me come in from the kitchen with my food. He had been sitting in that blue room watching me for however long it took for the chat to connect and for me to come back and sit down. And I had no idea. That is the thing I sit with. That specific window of time when someone is watching and you do not know it yet. Check your camera. Check what is looking back. Because sometimes you look up and the eyes are already there.